even from the worst things, there is good. And in philosophy, that's called a dialect. They talk about, I remember this back in community college, and I always, you know, I remember because when your professor comes in and says to the class, there is good in AIDS, and says, what is the good in AIDS? You know, it kind of shatters your paradigm, because when you're so indoctrinated to think that something like AIDS is just evil, and how could there possibly be any good in AIDS? And then you spend a course of, you know, a series of lectures, and you know, and she explained to us the idea of the dialect, the thesis, the antithesis. If I remember, you know, so for every thesis there's an antithesis, and it creates a new synthesis. So the thesis is, if you think of the thesis is AIDS is bad, the antithesis is AIDS is good. If you think of the dialect, you know, the Japan tsunami is good, then the antithesis is the Japan tsunami is bad. The synthesis is what you learn from applying the two to create a new thesis and a new antithesis. And that cycle is perpetual. So I want to take a moment to talk about, you know, how the tsunami and its earthquake, you know, the earthquake and the tsunami is good for Japan. And it may, you know, it's been a month, so I don't know how, you know, if you are, I don't know, level-headed enough or detached enough just to explore this mental exercise with me. But what could come out? What could be good because of the disaster? Now, obviously, the loss of life is not good. Obviously, the harm and the dislocation and the ultimate disenfranchisement of so many. Right now, there's 150,000 people still in shelters. There were 550,000 affected. You know, there is a host more who have had to evacuate, and you know, and they just upped the evacuation range. So it's hard maybe for you to even think about what's the good, but let's think the big picture. Let's think of 10 years. Well, a lot of these communities, you know, are hundreds of years old. They lacked, like our community, doesn't have any sewage systems, or or the roads are too small because they were built back for carts and little trucks or whatever. I mean, so they were too close to the water, and they were not positioned. So one of the good things out of this event is we can restructure, reorganize, and build better communities. All right, and have communities that basically will withstand, the next 10-point earthquake, and maybe instead of a 30-foot, maybe a 60-foot tsunami. Because historically speaking, we know that there were events as big or possibly bigger in the past in Japan. So another thing is it will provide a hubris for engineers. The hubris for engineers was they saved money, and they didn't want to spend what they needed to spend to ensure the safety of the plant. Now, they only built the tsunami the plant to withstand what they're saying now is an 8.0, and really waves that were a 5 meter, I believe, or 15. If they would have been just 10 foot higher, it would have been fine. And what we learn from that is ultimately the cost of making that decision to save money then, look at what it's cost now in situations. So dialectically speaking, what good will come out of this? Well, the government will probably mandate for all structures for nuclear power stations to be able to withstand certain levels. They won't leave it up to the engineers, which will mean that contractors in the future won't be able to cut corners and really and be cheaper and saving money. Another outcome that I believe that will come out of this is, you know, there's a great opportunity for the world to help Japan, and for Japan to at least get, you know, some feeling that they can't do it alone or be alone. You know, the Japanese, you know, were basically destroyed during the Second World War by us. I mean, we firebombed, destroyed so many cities. The amount of lives that were lost are you know, pale. I mean, their worst disaster was the end of was 1944, at the end of the war. So, in a way, this disaster pales compared to that. However, this is the biggest natural disaster they've had in over a century. Now, the opportunity is, it's been very hard to work in Japan, to get businesses in Japan. And my social venture, Help Japan Co., whole purpose is to basically, you know, bring federal contractors into Japan to help in the recovery. Now, if I'm successful, what it means is we could have a whole new market for federal contractors in Japan. And, you know, and basically, over the next 10 years, become a key partner in the reconstruction efforts of Japan, and, you know, and provide basically communities the opportunity to rebuild. That's tremendous. You know, that would be a tremendous thing. That would, you know, to help bring down that wall and to, you know, create that relationship. And be able to say from here on out, this is what we did for you. You know, we really stepped up. We came here and we helped rebuild your country in a time of great need. And you know, if you think about it, we build communities, we build bases. You know, contractors, you know, they're the ones who build complete towns in Kuwait and in Afghanistan, or bases. I mean, they build from scratch. They cover the logistics of all of that. They move bases. They pick up waste, whether it's 9/11 or Katrina, or, you know, they're the ones who are responsible for basically cleaning it up. So we are in a great position to assist Japan. And, you know, and in doing so, help America. So, yes, I mean, I'm in Japan. I'm in a close to the small seaside villages. I mean, if it would have happened on the Japan side, it would have affected my life and my community and my friends. And we have a nuclear power station, you know, also on the coast, on this side. So everything that happened on the East Coast could have happened on the West Coast. And, you know, I'm a proactive person, and I like to think of, you know, moving forward. Yeah, the disaster was horrific. Yes, the cost of life, the communities, everything else can never be returned. However, we got to think of the good, in the sense of what can we do now moving forward to help the Japanese people. And I need your help to help me. So you can visit my blog at helpmehelpjapan.com, or go to helpjapan.co. You know, check out our group on LinkedIn, and our connection, and our company. We are a social venture, a Found Ups Corp. That's a C corporation headquartered with representative offices in Japan, and we're looking to